Chris here with the Chuwi Surbook Mini. So this is a smaller version of the Surbook that I reviewed, and you could call it really a cut down, cheaper version. Now why I say cut down, because they've lowered the RAM. So the RAM's not 6 gigabytes like the Surbook, it is now 4 on this particular model, which was what we were first getting with the Intel Celeron M3450s, which this is powered by. So that's a chip that's a quad core, and it has 2 megabytes of cache and a maximum turbo of 2.2 gigahertz. This has wireless AC, just like the Surbook. They've made no compromises there, which is good. But they made a compromise with the stylus. So it supports an active stylus, which I happen to have right here, but is one of those very simple styluses. So it's on or off, that is it. When it touches the screen, there is no pressure sensitivity. So not a recommended stylus at all for people into handwriting, they want to take notes well, or artists. This is going to actually drive you mad because you cannot really use this properly. It's more just like an accurate pointer. So when it is on and touching the screen, you do have palm rejection, but really that is basically it. I will not cover any more of the stylus because there is no point to it without having any pressure sensitivity. Oh, it does work quite close up to the edges as well, within a margin of about 1 millimeter or so. But that's the stylus. No more on that. Now an optional keyboard as well you can get for this, which is just like the keyboard you'd find on a Microsoft Surface, but not quite the same quality, however, that you get on this one. So the key travel on this is quite shallow, about 1.2 to 1.1 millimeters that I measured. It's okay, but because of the smaller size of the screen being 10.8 inches, that the typing experience isn't quite as comfortable. The other thing to note too, that the touchpad is not a precision one, so it can be frustrating to use. You cannot disable the gestures without any registry hacks. The other thing too with the keyboard is that it does have this plastic either side of those keys, which is normal because they're separated, but it is raised up a little bit higher, and the key travel actually goes beyond that. So when you're typing on it and you happen to touch in between by accident, it can be a little bit uncomfortable. So there's something else to bear in mind. We get a few shortcuts on here, but obviously it is limited with the limited size and the real estate they have for this keyboard. It docks in just like any Surface device would magnetically with the pogo ports there, and you can prop it up to another level. Now when you press down hard on this, there is a little bit of flex. Depending on how heavy you are when typing, you may notice a little bit of bounce too pressing that on. So the keyboard I rate as average, but I still do recommend getting that keyboard, of course, if you are going to be buying this particular device. Oh, and there is a magnet in it, so when you do close it, that magnet, the Hall sensor, can put the device into sleep. So that's something that is handy there, and it doubles as a screen protector when you've got it closed up there. So the build of it, you can see we have a kickstand, again like a Microsoft Surface. This is based really off the Surface 3. It's not fixed angle, but variable angle one, so you can angle it all the way back like this and prop it up to where I had it before. About there, that's really the maximum angle you can get before it risks actually falling over there. But it works. The hinge on it is made out of metal. The build overall is mostly metal. You see along the top here we have a plastic chrome styled buttons. They feel okay. And obviously this strip along the top, that is plastic for the wireless and Bluetooth reception. We've got wireless AC on this model. And the ports we have, on the right hand side, we've got 2 USB 3 ports that will power external hard drives, Type-C port that supports display, video out, and data all at the same time. Now I have a minor complaint with this Type-C port, and that is because of the housing, it's at a little bit of an angle you can see there, that pressing in some Type-C plugs of mine with hubs or even a charging cable can be a little bit challenging at times, and sometimes the charging cable has popped out. So not the greatest there. I was hoping that Chuwi would have fixed this because I had the same problem with the Surbook. You'll see we also have a 3.5mm headphone jack. Sound output on this is okay. The loudness is also okay. I do wish it was a little bit louder. Focusing on that screen now, so it is 1920 by 1280 in resolution, 10.8 inches, 3:2 aspect ratio. And as you can see from my sample images here, that color reproduction is very good and a really nice screen. Very bright as well, 520 lux maximum output and really decent colors on this. The fact that it's fully laminated is what makes this display shine, because you get deep blacks, the contrast is just a little better there, and really a nice panel. If it was good enough for Microsoft to use in the Surface 3, then it is definitely good enough for an alternative, cheaper Chinese model here. The Surbook Mini ships with Windows 10 Home version 17.03. I've run a couple of benchmarks on here. So the chipset has a maximum turbo of 2.2 gigahertz. It's quad core, and this is a way to gauge the performance. If you have a similar kind of tablet or a notebook, run this test here and you can get an idea of just how the performance stands with your own existing machine. So this is Geekbench 4, and those scores there, they're fine for the Celeron M3450. More or less what I'm getting on others, perhaps a little bit lower the multi-core score here. I often see close to 4,000 here, but the single core score, that is definitely perfectly fine there. Here is the OpenCL score, so this is using the Intel HD500 graphics, the GPU there to calculate that. And then the wireless speed. So this is testing my 300 megabit fiber line from within the studio here and the room. So the actual router is about 2 rooms away, and the performance is okay. This isn't bad, more or less what you get with other devices running this chipset, the Intel 3165. It's not a premium chipset, but at least it is wireless AC dual band, and it offers reasonably good performance there. Now what is really good in terms of performance is the eMMC drive on here. So we don't have any expandability with the storage. There is no M.2 SATA 3 SSD slot, unfortunately, but at least Chuwi have put in here a SanDisk eMMC 5.1 spec drive, and as you can see from these speeds here, that it's really quite quick. Look at this, 271 sequential reads, and then 115 writes, and good 4K speeds, so very pleased with the performance of the internal storage. Taking a look now at Chrome performance, I wanted to show you the touch response. So in general, touch response and accuracy is good in Windows, but I have noticed that there is a little bit of lag in Chrome. You can see here that it's not performing as fast as it could. Not the greatest. Now it is quite an image intensive heavy website, my website here, so that does affect the performance, but you can see even then loading that in, it's a little slower than I would like there, and a bit of a delay there with touch. So Chrome performance isn't that great, but when you switch over to something like Edge, then you find the performance is just so much better. It scrolls, of course, a lot faster, but those websites that I'm looking at are a little bit lighter. But even if I go into my own website, TechTablets, you'll see loading really fast. It's the first time I've loaded it, by the way, in Edge, and the scrolling performance is a lot better. Not perfect, you see there's a little few stutters there, just rendering still, that's why that happened. But so much better, which is why I recommend that if you're going to be doing a lot of web browsing like this, stick to Edge or Internet Explorer or something that's a little bit lighter than Chrome. This runs okay. You can see it's a little bit slow and laggy there when going to full screen, drop 2 frames only, but overall, if you stick to Edge again, then 4K streaming at least in YouTube here is going to be fine, but don't try this in Chrome. Chrome is very choppy and laggy. Now we only have 4 gigabytes of RAM here. You get 6 on the Surbook, so ideally that is better to have. The 6, of course, the more the merrier, because it's going to perform a little bit more fluid, a little faster, and you do notice it once you start to fill up the memory. So if you're running Chrome and a few other applications, for example, I've got League of Legends here, Paint open, and that's actually images there. You'll notice that it starts to bog down a little bit when you start to move around or hit the start menu, that things become a little slower, the animation's just a little laggier, so it doesn't handle heavy multitasking that well. Now the memory is running in dual channel at least, and at 1600 megahertz. It's low powered double data rate 3 spec, so you can only expect so much from this kind of hardware. So if you want to edit videos or images, very heavy images, then I wouldn't really be doing it on an Apollo Lake Celeron M3450. So you might be wondering, hang on Chris, where are the speakers? I didn't see them in the beginning. Well, that's because they're actually just inside here. Now when I say speakers, yes, there are 2 of them in here. I thought it was just mono speaker, but of course having both of the speakers on the left hand side, we're going to get very poor separation, and these speakers do sound quite poor. They just are not loud enough at all. I'll give you a sample of them. Okay, hard to believe that was 100% volume. They are terrible in terms of loudness, just way too quiet. So it has a 37 watt hour battery, and really it's just not enough because I only managed to get 5 hours and 20 minutes in my battery life test here. So I ran it down from 100%, 30% brightness. I just kept using it continuously, so YouTube, Chrome, and really I expected a little bit more than this. Even though it's only 37 watt hours, I was hoping for somewhere around 6 to 7 hour mark. So falls short here, and definitely a lot less battery than the likes of its bigger sibling, the Surbook. Now charge times, it will take 2 hours and 51 minutes to charge when powered off, going from 10% right up to 100. Taking a look now at the gaming performance, this is a stall game called Asphalt Extreme, and it's a little choppy. It doesn't quite run at 30 frames per second. It's on the lowest visual setting, but it's still not ideal. Let's have a look at how League of Legends and Counter-Strike perform. So Counter-Strike 800x600 resolution is very choppy on the lowest settings. It peaks about 30 frames per second, but it's just far too slow, so you really want to apply that power limit tweak. You can see down to 3 frames per second there. Ouch, not good at all. So you can see here that League of Legends running at 720p on the medium settings is getting at least playable frames per second. It hovers around 50-40 frames per second. I have seen it dip down to about 30 when there's a lot on screen, but overall it is at least playable. So thermals are really good here. Maximum of 56 degrees. This was after 30 minutes of gaming and charging at the same time. So there's plenty of headroom here to unlock those power limits and push this chip a lot higher, because we've just got so much thermal headroom. It'll probably get up to about 80 degrees if you set it to 10 watts, but it will really boost that GPU performance, which is really restricted and lacking at the moment with the factory power limit setting. Short clip here now from the front webcam. So 720p max, 30 frames per second. You can see the quality is actually alright. It's not bad compared to other tablets that I have looked at that have the Sauron M3450. Now, if you're wondering about the BIOS, unfortunately it's locked out to us. All we have is just some basic configuration settings here, so none of those advanced menus are open. So this is the latest build of Linux Manjaro, and everything is working apart from touch. One thing too, the audio seems to be outputting to the 3.5mm headphone jack and not via the speakers, so you need to configure that. So that is it really. You just need to hunt around and find the driver for the touchscreen, and then if you can get that working, Linux will run okay on this particular machine. Alright, so let's just wrap things up here. This screen of it is really great. I do love it, fully laminated, it's super bright, decent colors and blacks. The best thing about this tablet, and the build quality is great, we've got also fast internal storage, wireless AC, but there are quite a few disappointing areas. Now, one of them has to definitely be the stylus. You make a tablet like this, which is really like a Microsoft Surface 3, but then you pair it up with the HiPen 2. It should be Chuwi's HiPen 3 that supports 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity, and this of course does not have any sensitivity whatsoever to pressure, which means really to just throw it out the window because it's an accurate pointer and just for basic tasks. So artists, people that need to write a lot of notes and things like that, forget it. You don't want to be using a stylus like this ever on a device like this because it will frustrate you and it is disappointing. Now the other thing that is also frustrating with this device in my time using it for the week is the touchpad. The touchpad, you can often trigger gestures by mistake and you cannot disable them. It's not a precision touchpad as well, so the accuracy doesn't seem that great on it and it does frustrate me quite a bit. Typing on that keyboard, once I adapted to the smaller size here, so this of course is a keyboard designed for a 10.8-inch screen, so they've had to cram it down a little bit. We don't have all of the shortcuts we normally see, and the typing experience on those keys is a little shallow, the key travel, and I do find it cramped, but once I adapted to it, I was typing okay, and you do have to hit those keys really square on in the center, because if you do touch a little bit to the side, you'll end up hitting that plastic which is raised up. I think they've done this to recessed it a little bit here, reducing that key travel to stop the keys from hopefully scratching up and touching the screen when you've got it all closed. which I do believe will end up happening. If you have it pressed in between books or other things in your bag, then it will probably end up scratching the screen, which doesn't have scratch resistant glass, but there is a screen protector on here. So overall, I would go for the Chuwi Surbook because it's got 2 GB of RAM more. It has about 2 hours more of battery life as well. And we get, of course, a stylus that has 1024 levels of pressure sensitivity. So please do check out my review of the Chuwi Surbook up here and then my latest videos. And thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, then why not think about subscribing to the channel, because I will have plenty more of reviews like this one here up and coming, some more tablets and other tech out of China. Bye for now.